Hierarch Severus. Demonstrating steadiness and surely that belie his age, Severus inspires his followers to transcend their humanity and become an extension of the Creator's will. Those who attend him can feel the power of unchecked divinity in his words and deeds. When he raises his hand against his enemies, righteous fire blazes forth to grant them a final lesson in pain and humility, while believers look on his robed form with an awe and adoration that gives rise to tears. Others see him as an incarnation of pure terror and a reminder that the shaper of man can just as easily reduce his creations to ash if it displeases. The death of Hierarch Voil could have been a cataclysmic blow to the Protectorate, to see the most potent Menites since the days of the Priest Kings struck down by the heathens. The very moment victory over their oppressors seemed assured was staggering. The priesthood froze in despairing disbelief in those first terrible hours. The Viscos and senior priests remembered too well the years of chaos and uncertainty in the wake of Hierarch Ravenel's passing and the bloody struggle that had followed as Voil seized the reins of power. The presence of the Harbinger of Menoth, however, reassured the priests in Sol and Immer and reminded them they did not lack for guidance. To them, she said, "The next Hierarch walks among you, carving a new domain in the north, uniting the faithful." The rise of Severus marks the first time a Hierarch gained power so quickly and with such irrefutable approval from the Creator of man. Severus no longer refuses authority as he had as Grand Scrutator when he had removed himself from the political arena to demonstrate his determination to fight on the battlefield. He takes the burden of leadership in stride, knowing the Protectorate must heed a single voice in its time of war. Likewise, Severus knows his place remains at the fore of his crusade. He is determined to remain on the field of battle in his role as the anointed priest general. His hierarchy has proven to differ dramatically from Ravenel's and Voil's. Theirs was time of preparation, of building the machinery of war, readying the martial orders, and constructing factories and mines to support the coming crusades. Hierarch Severus has taken up the weapons his predecessors forged and decided to leave the trivial matters of the temple bureaucracy to the Synod and Immer. Before his elevation to Hierarch, Severus spoke the words inscribed in script of blazing fire within the covenant of Menoth outside Laren, invoking its terrible power as foretold by prophecy and confirmed by the visions of the Harbinger. This unleashed power awaits his command to turn any enemy of the faithful to ash. The pyres of these heathens transforming the land into fire stirs the hearts of those who have faltered in their faith, restoring them to the righteous worship of Menoth. He has witnessed the return of the testament of Urkane and has vowed to employ the Harbinger, to swell the ranks of the faithful. The path of the future lies open and clear to him. The Hierarch has taken it as his life's work to unite Menites of Western Amoran and spread the true law to all humanity. Those answering his call will usher in a new age by hammering the cathedrals of Morrow to rubble and erecting new temples to the lawgiver. The younger wayward faithful will bow to Menoth or perish utterly. Well, Hierarch Severus, the time of preparation is done. His time is the time of action, which for the Protectorate and their Holy Crusade, that should be terrifying to every Morrow, Theramite, and pretty much anybody else who goes against the true law of Menoth, of course. So he seems terrifying. But let's see what his Mark 4 or Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes are. I'm going to say probably not much, but he is a very powerful caster, regardless, because he is a very high focus caster. So let's check it out. Alrighty, it appears the stat line really hasn't changed for our grand old Severus. He's still a speed 5, still has a mat of 5. Well, actually his mat went up to a 5, so his mat's better in this newer form than it was in the older form. His defense and arm is still a 14. His arc is still a 8. And his control area is a 16, so I guess they kept that. As far as his standard abilities, he still has Field Marshal Oracle Vision. So every model in his battle group, or cohort as they call it now in Mark 4, can spend 1 focus per turn to immediately negate all damage roll from an attack. So that's kind of awesome. They did remove arcane power, so he can't upkeep a spell without spending a focus. Unfortunately, they took that out. His weapon is still the same. Still a range 2, power 13 magical weapon that explodes, fire to the D3 nearest models within 4 inches. Suffer a POW 10 damage roll. So that's kind of epic. So getting more bang for your buck if you get this guy into melee. His spells are basically mostly the same. He still has Arcane Ward, so he still gives guys +2 defense, and then they can't be targeted by enemy spells. He still has Ashes to Ashes, so that is still a range 8 POW 10 spell that if you directly hit the target, it jumps off to D3 other targets within 4 inches and does another POW 10 fire damage rolls to those guys. He still has Creator's Wrath, though they shortened the Creator's Wrath, so the spellcaster gains an additional die on melee attack and melee damage rolls. And his weapon is Blessed. Originally it just removes spell effects that give target arm and defense, but Blessed is the same thing, so I guess they're just like, okay, yeah, we'll make that work. Then he still has Hex Blast. So everybody aware of Hex Blast is a range 10 AoE on that one, although with the update there is no longer AoE, so it is a POW 13, POW 8, and the AoE is a 2, so 2 nearest models within 2 suffer the POW 8 on a direct hit, and enemy models and upkeep spells, animi, yada yada yada, all of their upkeep spells jump off, so that is that. And then awareness has been changed out for Mage Sight, which makes sense. So while in the spellcaster's control range, models gain Eyeless Sight, instead of them just being able to ignore cloud effects and forest terrain and intervening models when just determining line of sight. So I guess they shortened that to make that a little bit better or a little bit easier to read. Although I don't think Eyeless Sight ignores forest terrain. I'm not entirely sure about that. You'll have to check that on your own. One of the spells they took away from him was Rebuke, and Rebuke was a target model cannot give orders, receive orders, or make power attacks, and I believe they probably took that out because the whole orders thing has been mostly taken out. Other than make power attacks and special attacks, that would have been cool, but I think they were just trying to remove that spell off the list. And then basically his feat, Fires of Communion, is the exact same thing as it was before. D3 +2 enemy non-leader models. He can choose D3 +2 non-leader models. And if you do, they suffer a boostable POW 12 magic attack roll. And if they are boxed, they're removed from play. And where they were stands an AoE template that if enemy models walk into that template entering or ending their activation in the AoE, they suffer a POW 12 damage roll and continuous fire effect. So outside of his spell list changing very minimally, he is still the same epic warcaster. He's just a lot better at hitting stuff than he was before, because on his mat 4 to a mat 5, that's still significant. And with his Creator's Wrath, that's just adding additional die to his melee attack and melee damage rolls. You can still boost it. So for a guy with a 13 weapon, being able to boost it up to a 4 dice on a damage roll is still pretty significant, especially since it jumps off and hits other people. So yeah, weirdly enough, for an old man, he still makes a pretty decent melee model. But yeah, that is Hierarch Severius, the most dangerous and highest amount of focus right now. So let's